everyone, and welcome to Making Waves, the monthly show right here on CAN TV from the Chicago Maritime Museum, open Tuesday through Sunday, 10 to 4, all about Chicago's maritime past and present. Now, with the holiday season fast approaching, this episode we are talking all about Chicago's Christmas tree ship, a reenactment of a holiday tradition with its roots back in the late 19th and early 20th century, back when lumber schooners would carry their last cargo of the season, Christmas trees, to Chicago for the holidays. With me, as always, is Sari Breslin, the museum's education director. I'm Madeline Crispell, the museum's curator. Now, Sari, can you tell us about our special guest this week?
Absolutely. With us today is Mr. George Kisiel. He's a Chicago architect and urban planner and the president of Kisiel Associates. He's one of the city's foremost experts on zoning and planning issues and testifies regularly on controversial development proposals throughout the city and the region. He's a board member of the Chicago Marine Heritage Society, the Captain Dave's Foundation, and the Great Lakes Naval Museum Foundation. And all of these projects, and the chairman, of the Chicago Christmas Ship Committee, the most important one. I'm so excited. All of these projects are the siblings of our Chicago Maritime Museum. All of these are legacies of our Captain Dave Truitt. And as an experienced sailor, George sailed across the North Atlantic from St. Augustine, Florida, to Svendborg, Denmark, on a 75-year-old 90-foot ketch-rigged Baltic trader free. After returning to Chicago, he served as first mate on Charlotte Ann. He currently sails for pleasure on Lake Michigan out of Jackson Park Harbor in a 1957 Herreshoff-designed ketch with his wife, me. Today we welcome to our show Mr. George Kisiel, chairman of the Chicago's Christmas Ship Committee.
Now, we're very happy to have you on the show this week, George, because Making Waves is all about Chicago's maritime past and its present. And the Christmas tree ship is a natural fit for us, since it's a perfect example of how that maritime history still shapes our city today. Now, George, can you tell us a little bit about the Chicago Christmas tree ship and what that means for us today?
Of course, I'd be delighted, and thank you for having me on today. So, Chicago's Christmas Ship, which is organized by Chicago's Christmas Ship Committee, is a project of the Chicago chapter of the Navy League of the United States. I am the chairman of that committee. Chicago's Christmas Ship Committee is a consortium of 6 individuals from various maritime organizations in Chicago that include the Chicago chapter of the Navy League of the United States, the Chicago Marine Heritage Society, the International Shipmasters Association, Chicago Lodge No. 3, and the Chicago Yacht Club. Chicago's Christmas Ship Committee raises funds, purchases trees, and coordinates their distribution to community organizations over the first weekend of December each year. And 2024 is our 25th anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah. Our partners in this endeavor include Navy Pier, the United States Coast Guard, including District 9, Sector Lake Michigan, the Marine Safety Unit, and of course the United States Coast Guard cutter Mackinac. Also partnering with us are the Chicago Yacht Club and Ada McKinley Community Services.
Oh, thank you very much, George, for walking us through that illustrious list. Now, I'm guessing some of our viewers at home may wonder what I meant when I said that this beloved Chicago tradition of the Christmas ship has roots in Chicago's history. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit, George, about the history of Christmas tree ships, but also specifically about the Rouse Simmons, which is the ship that you and this very impressive list of partners are paying homage to as part of this amazing, very cool event.
Certainly. So, in the mid to late 1800s, Chicago was one of the main lumber producers in the country. Lumber schooners would haul timber from the forests in northern Wisconsin and Michigan to the city to be milled for use in the construction trade, which at that time was booming after the Great Chicago Fire, probably the greatest period of expansion of the city in its history. The last haul of the year for these lumbermen were often Christmas trees. It was a lucrative cargo, and most sold to wholesalers, but some captains bypassed the middleman and sold directly to the public from the dock. One of the last and most famous of these captains was Captain Herman Schooneman. He and his three-masted schooner, the Rouse Simmons, would pull up at the dock in late November with a deck full of Christmas trees, with a single tree lashed to the topmast. The arrival of the Christmas tree ship became quite an event. This Christmas tree ship became so famous that it was immortalized in a set of paintings by Charles Vickery, the famous painter of maritime scenes.
Oh, God, I love those. I'm still trying to get my own Christmas ship schooner. We have the Arrival, but that's the one that I want.
Very evocative image.
Isn't it lovely? How did the Christmas tree ship, George, move from the 1900s to the year 2024?
Okay, so tragically, the Rouse Simmons, Captain Schooneman, and all of his crew were lost in a storm off Tours, Wisconsin on November 22nd, 1912. Much later, a member of the Underwater Archaeological Society of Chicago, a gentleman by the name of Chet Childs, was inspired to write a play about Schooneman and the famous schooner. One of the actors in that play, a gentleman named Captain Dave Truitt, whose name you've heard and will continue to hear on this program, was later inspired to recreate the tradition of the Christmas tree ships of the past while aboard the United States Coast Cutter Mackinac during the annual race to Mackinac Island. It was decided on the bridge of that boat that funds would be raised to buy trees, and the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Mackinac, a 3,500-ton heavy icebreaker stationed here in the Great Lakes, would take the place of the Rouse Simmons and carry the trees from its home port in Sheboygan, Michigan, to Navy Pier.
Why the Coast Guard, though? Do they pay for all these trees?
No.
What's their involvement?
No, absolutely not. So the Coast Guard is not involved at all in the purchase of trees. That is the task and mission of Chicago's Christmas Ship Committee. With regard to the Mackinac, though, during November of each year, as part of its mission, it works its way south from its home port in northern Michigan, changing out the aids to navigation. So those are the lights and buoys that guide commercial traffic. They switch them out from their summer version to their more durable winter versions. And at the end of that mission, they end up here in Chicago. So it seemed a natural fit to see if they might be willing to transport the trees for us. As it turns out, they were all in, and now they use the loading and unloading trees as a training exercise. Also, it provides some great public relations for the Coast Guard and its mission. When a 3,500-ton icebreaker comes to town, people notice, especially when it's parked at Navy Pier.
Now, I've got some follow-up questions relating to those buoys, George, and I'll get to that later. But first, I'm sorry, I have a bit of a confession to make. I have never attended a Christmas tree ship event. I'm planning on changing that this year, but I'm wondering if you could tell me and the viewers at home a little bit about what these Christmas tree ship events are like.
I would be delighted to. So, the two-day event takes place on the first weekend in December every year, and it's happened since the turn of this century. It begins on Friday with a formal ship's welcome along the west wall, adjacent to the lakeside stage at Polk Brothers Park, right next to Navy Pier. There's usually a musical performance from a local high school ensemble, followed by education programming for local middle and high school students aboard the Mackinac, and a VIP reception at the Chicago Yacht Club for the Mackinac and its crew. On Saturday morning, we have our formal tree ceremony. This is really the big event. So it happens at the same location at the lakeside stage at Polk Brothers Park at Navy Pier. And it's kicked off by a performance of the song When Big Mac Comes to Town by Lee Murdoch. He's a local musician and our official balladeer. It's followed by a presentation of colors by a local junior high school JROTC group, the singing of the national anthem, and then speeches by Coast Guard leadership and the commander of the Mackinac.
So can you tell us how the modern day events actually tie back to the history of the Christmas ship?
Sure. So part of this tree ceremony on Saturday morning, in memory of Captain Schooneman and his crew, a wreath is blessed and laid at the Captain of the Helm statue at Navy Pier by the members of the Shipmasters Memorial Foundation in memory of all those souls who lost their lives on the Great Lakes plying their trade. Probably a great unknown fact among most people here is that there are over 6,000 shipwrecks in the Great Lakes, and many lost their lives transporting goods and raw materials that were essential to the growth of our nation. It was and still remains a dangerous endeavor.
How do you tie other modern Chicago institutions into the event?
So while that wreath is being laid at the Captain at the Helm statue, a helicopter flyover and a wreath drop at the end of Dime Pier in Lake Michigan is performed by the Chicago Fire Department Air Sea Rescue Unit. All of this in memory of those souls who were lost at sea. And finally, there's a presentation of a symbolic tree to representatives of Ada McKinley Community Services. They're one of the oldest community service organizations in the city, and they're the ones who really help coordinate the distribution of trees to community organizations. This final part of our program symbolizes the acts of charity that Christmas tree ship captains would perform, often giving away trees to families in need during the holiday season.
So, George, can you tell us a little bit more about that aspect of the festival? What happens to these trees after they get to Chicago?
Okay. So the annual cargo of 1,200 trees is offloaded by the crew of the Mackinac via an ingenious chute arrangement and loaded onto community organization trucks by youth volunteer groups, including the Sea Scouts, Boy and Girl Scout troops, Young Marines, and other organizations. These trucks then go out to locations chosen by community organizations in underserved areas of the city where they find their way to deserving families. While the trees serve to provide a bit of holiday cheer, just as importantly, they help connect community members with service organizations in their community. As this is our 25th year, we've distributed over 30,000 trees to Chicago's most disadvantaged neighborhoods. For more information on Chicago's Christmas Ship, you can, of course, go to our website at www.christmasship.org.
Well, George, thank you so much for walking us through all of that information. Now, I know Sari and I have about 1,000 questions for you following that up. And, you know, I'd love to open with the buoys, but instead my first question for you is going to be 25 years. That's a big year for an anniversary. Can you tell us what are some of the different, special, exciting things that are happening this year?
Sure. So over the course of the 25 years, Chicago's Christmas Ship has been helped by 10 captains of 3 different Coast Guard vessels. There was the original Mackinac, which had been in service for about 62 years before it retired in 2006. And from then on, it was the newer Coast Guard cutter Mackinac that performed that task. But there was one year where she was in dry dock and unable to help us out, so the Coast Guard cutter Alder stepped in and helped us out there. It's really kind of a great team effort by the Coast Guard, who's very used to handling things that aren't expected. So it was great of them to help us out with that. This being our 25th year, we're inviting all of those 10 captains back for our festival and ceremony this year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So one of the other things that we're doing that's a little bit different this year and certainly special is normally the Coast Guard cutter Mackinac arrives at Navy Pier and docks at its normal location on the west wall where we hold all of our events. This year, though, they're going to arrive a little bit early, dock on the south side of Navy Pier, and then they're going to actually leave the dock and then do sort of a grand arrival Friday morning at Navy Pier.
Very exciting.
We're looking forward to that, and we're hoping that all of the past captains will be able to come along on that ride with us. So that's...
I'm wondering, though, why 10 captains?
Right, over only 25 years.
That seems like a lot. Don't they like their job?
Well, the fact of the matter is the captain of a Coast Guard cutter in the Great Lakes is a rotating watch. So every 3 years you have a turnover of captain and crew on board the Coast Guard cutters, particularly the Mackinac. So
how about that?
10 captains over 25 years, and there are some who get assigned to another position earlier, either through promotion or through necessity. So some have served for 2 years, but most really have served for 3 years. So that's how we arrive at the 10 number over a course of 25 years.
I imagine bringing Christmas tree ships down is the plum assignment of the Coast Guard, right?
It is something that is a sought-after assignment. A lot of Coast Guard they know about this sort of institution-wide, and it's really become something that the Coast Guard is very proud of, and they participate willingly. And we of course couldn't do it to the degree we do without them.
Well, I know you said that the Coast Guard doesn't pay for the trees. Can you tell us a little bit about the fundraising and how you get the money to pay for these trees?
Sure. So generally, there's sort of a three-pronged approach that we use. So, of course, we solicit charitable foundations and organizations. So we receive funds from the Tawani Foundation, which is now, I believe, the Pritzker Military Foundation. We receive funds from the Kisiel Family Foundation. We also receive funds from the Chicago Yacht Club Foundation. The Shipmasters Local Lodge also donates. So that's kind of the bulk. But we also receive donations from private individuals. If you donate $100, you become what's known as a tree sponsor, and you're invited to our VIP reception on Friday of the event. So those of you who are interested in that, you can go to our website, www.christmasship.org, and sign up as a tree sponsor.
George, I'm a very important person. I'd like to hear more about this VIP event happening on Friday.
Sure.
What does that look like?
Okay, so this takes place at Chicago Yacht Club, one of the premier yacht clubs in the city. It involves basically it's an invitation to not only our funders and our tree donors, but it's also an appreciation for the crew of the Chicago the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Mackinac, as well as all of the different Coast Guard divisions that help us out. District 9, the Sector Lake Michigan, the Marine Safety Unit here in this city, and of course crew of the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Mackinac. So it's a wonderful spread, open bar, top shelf bar, I might add.
How about that?
Excellent food and drink, the finest that the Yacht Club has to offer. And we also have entertainment this year. So members of the Coast Guard Academy Glee Club will be in attendance this year, and they will be performing at the VIP reception. It's a great group. They do a mix of rousing military songs as well as sea shanties, and it's just absolutely a wonderful
Who
thing.
doesn't love that playlist?
Oh my God. And it's a beautiful event. I've actually been lucky to attend it a few times. And it's a lovely event. But I'll bet you there's people that don't know. When you say District 9, who are you talking
That was
about?
a good question, Sari, because I was one of those people wondering.
Yeah.
Sure. So that's part of the Coast Guard's organization. So District 9 is basically handles the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Seaway. It's part of the Atlantic Division. So they're known as the guardians of the Great Lakes. So District 9 is sort of the large umbrella that covers the Great Lakes, St. Lawrence Seaway, and the states and the shorelines that are adjacent to that. Sector Lake Michigan is, of course, what is dedicated to events or activities of the Coast Guard on Lake Michigan. And the Marine Safety Unit is dedicated to basically the city of Chicago and focuses on marine safety. They're based in Willowbrook, and of course, a lot of Chicago's marine activity on the commercial side takes place in its rivers, as well as on the lake. So they cover all of that. And there is also a Coast Guard station, Lake Calumet, who also helps out with various missions throughout the south end of Lake Michigan.
There you go.
I don't want you to forget your buoy question.
Oh, yeah,
though.
no, I was going to say, the people at home, no, this is only our second episode. I'm not going to leave a buoy question on the table, though. So, George, if the people at home are anything like me, they may be wondering, they have to switch the buoys out from a summer to a winter buoy? Why
Just like
is
a
such
wardrobe?
a thing necessary? Right, it needs a mitten? What is it?
Well, as we all know, the weather on Lake Michigan turns much nastier in the wintertime. So there's a need to switch out the perhaps less robust, larger buoys that are there in the summertime, where there's definitely much more marine activity with recreational vessels as well as commercial vessels. In the wintertime, it's basically just commercial vessels. So it's a different set of buoys. They're switched out not only for maintenance, but some of the buoys also have delicate, sensitive sensors that basically relay weather information. So those are best taken in and maintained during the off season, so to speak, and then brought back in the spring.
How about that?
Are there any other pre-game warm-up things that you guys have for the Christmas ship? Besides the VIP reception?
Well, sure, there is. So there's one other fundraising event that we do, and that is a fireworks cruise on the Chicago River. Now we do that to coincide with the fireworks and the lighting festival on Michigan Avenue. So
Nice. What a great way of starting off the holiday season. Now, we just have a little bit of time left today. And so, George, I have one last question from us until later when we ask again for you to tell the people at home where they can find out more about this.
Sure.
What is your favorite part? You've been involved in this for a very long time. You've seen a lot of these events go through. What is your favorite part of these events?
Well, I really do enjoy the helicopter flyover and the placing of the wreath. So, this is in commemoration of all of those souls who have been lost at sea. A lot of people perhaps don't really realize the peril that those who ply their life on the water face day in and day out, particularly in the wintertime when, commercial traffic does not stop. And the weather conditions can rise up fairly quickly and cause some serious issues for mariners. So it's that commemoration of those who have lost their life, I think, that really strikes a chord with me. Being an ocean sailor, having experienced some conditions where you certainly understand you can be fearing for your life in certain conditions on water when things get rough. So that, and also the fact that the helicopter that drops the wreath is from the Chicago Fire Department Air Sea Rescue, of which our son is a member, and he actually flies the helicopter and has dropped the wreath on the road. So
how about that? Now, we're going to get into that aspect of things later this spring when we bring the sun in to talk all about that job and other interesting jobs you can have on the water. But finally, George, if you can repeat to the people at home how they can learn more about the Christmas tree ship, we will let you go off and prepare for this very cool event.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. So again, www.christmasship.org. There you can sign up to be a tree donor and be invited to our VIP reception. And you can also put in your reservation for a ticket for our Michigan Avenue Lights Festival fireworks cruise. It's going to take place on November 23rd this year from 6 to 9 p.m.
And how much is that?
Adults, $35. Children, $18. Must be accompanied by an adult.
$35, that's what it costs to be a member of the museum for a whole year.
Wow! So one night of fun, a whole year of fun. I'm not going to tell you at home what the better deal is. I'm going to say go to both, do the Christmas tree ship, become a member of the Chicago Maritime Museum. Again, you can find us at chicagomaritimemuseum.org, or you can come down to Bridgeport anytime Tuesday through Sunday, 10 to 4 p.m. I'm Madeline Crispell, the museum's curator.
Sari, Breslin, the education director.
George Kisiel, chairman of Chicago's Christmas Ship. Come out and see us this year.
Thank you so much for joining us this week on Making Waves.
Thank you.